Hey, I want to give a huge shout out to Laurie-Ann because working with her has completely changed how I approach speaking. I'm not a stranger to public speaking at all. I've done plenty of it, but I've never worked with a speaking coach before. And let me tell you, the difference between going it alone and working with Laurie-Ann, night and day. She helped me develop my signature speech, and not only did it highlight my expertise and authority really well, but it converted 60% of my audience onto my email list. 60%. And did I mention, thanks to her, I landed my first paid speaking gig. Lorianne's signature speech framework made it so easy to put together a talk that opened with a bang, kept my audience engaged, and most importantly, made it effortless for them to take the next step with me. She is an absolute pleasure to work with. Super smart, really strategic, and honestly, just so much fun to be around. So, if you're on the fence about working with her, do it. You'll wonder why you waited so long. Thank you, Lorianne.
What if the problem inside most organizations isn't a lack of accountability, but it's too much? Today's conversation might completely change the way that you think about leadership, teamwork, and the way so many smart, capable people are quietly disengaged at work. My guest today is Patrick Veroneau, who's no stranger to Be in Demand. He's been here before where he shared how he used workshops as a way to grow his business. He's an author, leadership expert, and someone who's been inside organizations long enough to notice this dangerous pattern. In this episode, we are going to unpack the real difference between accountability and ownership. And we also talk about how you show up as a teammate matters just as much as your title, and why leadership doesn't stop at work. It follows you home, into your relationships, and into every team that you're a part of. And stay with us till the end because Patrick shares a powerful insight that he calls the 1% drift. How small, almost invisible shifts in behavior slowly erode even the best of teams. Let's get on to the show. Patrick, welcome back. It's been a long time.
It has been. Thank you so much, LA. Been a
Yeah,
long time.
I yeah, I really wanted to one, I just have, a spot in my heart for, one, past clients, people that I've worked with, and also people's, work that I believe in, and I love this new book of yours. To everybody who's listening, I did have the benefit of getting a digital copy so that I was just
Yeah.
like, "You have to come on the show. I gotta talk about this because for so many reasons, for so many reasons."
Yeah.
But just can you, like, give everybody yep, like, right there's the book.
There it is.
Give everybody, like, a highlight.
Yeah. So over the last 5 years, if you look in terms of two things, one is if you look at the word accountability, if you were to do a search or Google Trends on the word accountability, you'd see that over the last 5 years, it's gone up. During that same period of time, if you look at engagement surveys that have been done by groups like Gallup or Press Ganey, you'll see that employee engagement has actually gone in the opposite direction over the last 5 years. We're at the lowest point we've been in a decade for employee engagement. And I don't think that is a coincidence. There's a correlation there between the two of those things. And for 15 plus years, I've been working this space, but over the last five, I really have noticed much more of that in terms of the organizations that I've worked with. So really, it was about reverse engineering. What are the great teams doing that they're not falling into this trap of accountability for the sake of more metrics, more dashboards, and they're seeing their employees are engaged because they've created what's called ownership. That's the missing piece.
Yeah, that is so true. Patrick, in reading the book, it reminded me of growing up with my dad. And my dad was an engineer working for Raytheon, and I heard him over and over say for years, "Work is a four-letter word. Work is a four," like, he loved being an engineer, but he hated as he moved up. So there I am, like, I graduate from college, and I'm thinking, "Oh, like, work is not supposed to be fun. You're not supposed
Yeah.
to enjoy being there. It's just something that you have to do." And lucky me, I got hired at Leahy Clinic to an amazing department, an amazing team of people. And I thought, "Oh, this is what work is like." Barely any of us took time off because we enjoyed being there so much and taking care of patients and doing quality work. But then I wanted to get registered and pass my registry exams for cardiology. So I transferred to that department, and it was like night and day,
Yeah.
separated by one floor. It was horrible, and I couldn't wait to leave, so when an opportunity came up to leave the hospital, I took it. And,
Yeah.
like, that's not an anomaly. I mean, like, that's, like, so many people, just like you talk about in your book, that it's like that 1%, you're either getting better each day or you're getting worse. And then before you know it, your best people are walking out the door.
Yeah, without question.
Mm.
And if I were to look, if we were to have that conversation looking back over where you were and where you are, you went from, my guess is, what was a great team to an average at best, or probably more like a struggling team, and it was all based on behaviors. And that's
Yes.
the interesting part about this, is that it's not to say that the struggling or average team, where you went, there weren't times where people probably supported each other or had each other's backs, but probably there was more challenging of each other in a way that people didn't feel as though they were supported in the first place. It's the
Yeah.
sequence of it. First group, you feel like people have each other's backs, so you naturally want to show up, because at that point you don't want to let other people down. It's not that you're doing it because you're going to be reprimanded if you don't, held accountable. You do it because you own it. It's the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. And we could talk about that for hours
Yeah,
because you're right. It was a phenomenal team that I felt so supported, and then I go to a department that, "Hey, you're patient." Like, it was just, like,
right.
hands off. So, one of the things that, like, really struck me about this book is, and I saw one of your videos on LinkedIn where you talk about how to be a great team member. And it
Yeah,
really does come down to taking, like, self-care, like, taking care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself outside of work, you're not gonna be great inside of work. Can you talk more about that?
100%. So what do we always hear? There's no I in team, right? How many times have you heard that? There's no I in team.
Too many
That
times.
is such a myth. There absolutely is an I in team. And what I mean by that is that if you don't take care of yourself spiritually, emotionally, physically, right, you can't be there for other people. That's part of being a great teammate, is you take care of yourself first. Because if you don't, you can't give what you don't have.
Mm,
As simple as that.
yeah.
You can't give what you don't have. So, one of the things I talk about in this book is, well, how do you become a great teammate? Is because you can't be on a great team if you don't commit first to being a great teammate. And I think that's been my experience in terms of books that I've read, and I read all the time in this, is that to me was a piece that always was missing. It was like, here's what the team can do, but well, what about the individual? How does the individual take care of themselves? Because there's a lot of research and science in terms of what you need to do to have positive wellness, to be happy, right?
Mm,
And that's what I talk about in that piece of it, is strategies to validated strategies, really, in terms of what are the things that you can do in terms of showing up best physically, emotionally, spiritually.
yeah.
It matters.
I think when I saw that video of yours on LinkedIn, I was just about to give a talk to a healthcare organization, and it was about communication, how to deal with difficult patients and demanding physicians. 90% of the talk was about you, about how you show up,
Yeah.
how you're taking care of yourself. Like, do you need to go for a walk? Do you need to, like, like, make sure that you're exercising or do yoga or meditation? Like, however you show up to take care of yourself, because just like you said, like, if your battery's on 0 or 25%, you just can't expect to deal with those stressful moments.
Yeah. In the book, I talk about a model that I use called POWER. It's based on 5 behaviors, all validated in terms of, like, what can you do to improve happiness? And if you think about it, if you're happier, you naturally going to be more engaged. You show up better, right? So the first one is praise. It's about every morning writing down 3 things you're grateful for. That's so simple, right? And the research on that is so solid in terms of the impact that has neurologically on us when we start from a place of gratitude. The next is around doing things for other people. That's the O in that power journal model. And it's about When we're present for other people and doing things for them, we naturally benefit from that too. The next is about writing. That's the W in the power model. And it's about at the end of the day, writing down 2 or 3 sentences, what went well during the day? And if you think about that, the benefit of that is that where'd you start your day? Gratitude. Where do you end your day? Gratitude. It's like you bookend your day in a place. And that's not to say that things didn't go wrong during the day. They always do, right? Or there's always going to be the chance. It's just like, where do I want to end today? Do I want to focus on that? Or do I want to say, you know what, today wasn't great, but what did go well? So the next is exercise, as little as 15 minutes a day. But again, it's been shown how impactful it is. Walking right now is like the big thing about all the research about how important that is. It's been going on for thousands of years in terms of talk. The Stoics talked about walking and its ability to calm us down. And the last is relaxation. And all that is finding 2 minutes to just have quiet time. And that could involve just square breathing, right? Where you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, you hold, and then you just rinse and repeat for 2 minutes. That's it.
That's it. 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
We all have
We're
2
worth
minutes.
that.
And
We're
yeah,
worth
we
2
are
minutes.
worth that. Okay. Let's go back to when we first started, we were talking about accountability.
Yeah.
What is the difference between accountability and ownership?
Yeah. Again, I call it the accountability paradox right now. In what I mean by that is that if you look again at what the focus is, and I hear this, I just read an article on this in LinkedIn, and I cringe when I see it when they're like, "Oh, we just need more accountability." I'm like, "No, you don't.
Mhm.
You need more ownership." If you look at the etymology of the word accountability, one of them from the French is around a reckoning, right? Think about that. To have a reckoning with somebody is accountability. That really doesn't feel very good to have a reckoning. Whereas if you look at ownership, it's about possession. That's what we want. Possession is about, and if you think about it in this regard, if I have ownership for something, the reckoning I have is with myself. There's a reckoning that goes on. I hold myself accountable more than I need you to or somebody else on the team because I own it. I'm taking possession for my role in where we are as a team. And that doesn't matter whether it's in an organization, a family, a personal relationship you have with somebody else, or a sports team, right? That's the difference. Accountability is the low bar. We're settling for the low bar when we do that, or second place when first is available. And that's creating ownership, all based on behaviors.
That's fantastic. Do you think all organizations, and doesn't matter like what level somebody is, like a manager or like an employee, I mean, it could be like housekeeping. Do you think everybody can have ownership?
Absolutely. And here's where I think the challenge is that accountability is easy if you think about it, because it's about another dashboard. There's something that I think people feel like I can do something about this. Ownership takes more time, right? Because you have to build that. It's like building this bridge. So I've had people push back at times that I've worked with that have said, it's not that simple, right? What you're asking us to do is not that simple. And I always push back to say, it is that simple. It's not easy, but it is that simple, right? There's a difference. Don't confuse simplicity with not being effective or with being easy, because they're neither. You need to be able to commit to this, and it takes time.
Do you have a fun story that you can share about that?
About accountability,
Yeah, accountability versus ownership. Maybe
ownership.
a client that you've worked with that they were so accountability focused and
Yeah.
you like
Uh,
you're the course of the
an,
work.
an interesting one, and I think I mentioned this one in the book too, is I was working with a director of a rehab facility. They had merged with another facility, so this person had taken on a whole new facility that really wasn't run well. And this person would show up there and be irritated with all of these therapists because he felt like they weren't committed, they weren't working. There was a total lack of trust. Now, if you think about this from the standpoint of what great teams do, the first thing they do is they have each other's backs. So when he was going in there, nobody felt as though he had their backs because he was always talking to them from a suspicious standpoint. So what did he do? Added more accountability. more metrics, more things he was going to follow. And the more he did that, the further it pushed this group away. So in one of the conversations we had, we started talking about this. And I said, what do you think happens when you walk in there? I said, what's the feeling you have? And he's like, I dread going into this office. And I'm like, what do you think they feel? Do you think they feel the same way? And he started saying, yeah, they probably do. And from that point, I actually had referenced another book that I had suggested him. It's a book called Leadership and Self-Deception. It's all about in the box versus out of the box. It's a great book. And after he read that, he sent me an email saying, that he just read that book. And as we had these conversations, he said, that was me. I was in the box. So as we were talking about, well, what do you do to get out of that? He's like, I showed up differently. And the first thing that I did, I had a meeting with them and apologized. I apologized. So when you think about that, what does that do for those people that have felt all along that you don't have their backs?
Yeah.
Now, did it make it all go away like he's this model citizen now? No, but it started that move from accountability to having people want to follow him and do a better job because his thumb wasn't on him. It wasn't being micromanaged.
Yeah. There's something about apologizing as a manager, as a leader, to apologize for something that you've done. I remember once apologizing to somebody in the hospital because I just didn't speak to her well on the phone, and it bugged me for the entire day. And I mean, I picked up the phone. This is when I was on call for the hospital and apologized to her. She said to me, "No one has ever apologized to me,"
Isn't that
and
amazing?
it is, and I just remember this moment so much that I'm so glad that I did it. It took a lot of courage to apologize to her, but anytime I ever called her after that, she had the patient to me, immediately. It just reminded me of, it's okay to apologize for what you did, what you didn't know, what you're trying to repair, as in the client that you were just sharing.
So along those lines, one of the articles that I had published as it relates to this is that great teams fight. Great teams fight. It's not great all the time. Families do. Sydney, my wife, and I get in arguments. The difference is that it comes from a different place that we know deep down we have each other's backs. We might disagree, and then there's an opportunity there. If we've gone over the line, that we come back and say, you know what, that was over the line. I apologize for that, or I was wrong. That's what we do. You can do that when you're on a team where we feel like we trust each other, we have each other's backs.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you just brought up, your wife, your family, because that is one of the things that you talk about in this, that it's more than just work teams.
Yeah.
We are part of so many other teams. If you happen to play, on a sports team, a pickup basketball game, your family, any club and organization, there are so many teams that we are actually a part of. It's not just at work, and, your family. Like in the book you talk about, um if you're part of a work team, you don't have a say that much in who's gonna be part of your team, but that's how, comes down to how you show up on that team.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned that as well, because that was one of the pushbacks I got on the book was, if it's going to be for families and couples and sports teams and organizations, it's kind of dilute it in regards to who's it really for. And my pushback was, it is for everybody. I'm not trying to be all things to all people, but I've experienced this enough to know that the relationship that Cindy and I have, or we have with our kids, it's the same thing that has made that great is organizations, sports teams. So why make it more complex than it needs to be just for the sake of doing that? It's not.
Right, and it's like whatever you're doing at work to make a better team, wow, imagine doing that with your kids, with your family, with your wife, with your extended family, with other groups of people. It really just might make a huge difference.
And if you think about it that way, if you play this right, that your family, or if you don't have kids, that relationship with that other person is hopefully going to be the team that you will be on for the rest of your life. You're going to leave organizations. You're going to leave sports teams. This team goes with you all the way to the end if you play this right in terms of how you connect with each other to create a great team.
Yeah.
If that one's not in place, I think it makes it more difficult to be at our best with our other teams.
And it also, taking care of your family, that outside of work life makes you a better teammate.
100%.
Like going back to that chapter again. Okay.
100%.
So you talk a lot about support, celebrate before challenge. Why? I think that this is really important. Like, why does support and celebrate come before challenge?
Yeah. It's a sequence. And again, to me, that's the difference between accountability and ownership. There are lots of organizations out there that they start with challenge. We have a problem. What do? We need more accountability. And then what we add next is when you demonstrate that you can do this, then I'll support you. Then I'll recognize you. It's in reverse. And we wonder why it doesn't last, because people feel as though um, they don't feel supported, I guess is the bottom line on that. And I would ask you, can you imagine if you get called out by somebody for performance or something that they think you're not doing well, but it's somebody on your team that you feel like doesn't support you, has never recognized you for the things that you do well. How well do you take that criticism from them or that challenge?
Oh, I am thinking of different stories. One in particular, when I drove in a blizzard to get to get to a hotel because I was working with a hospital the next day, and I do remember my manager, like, sending out this general message, and, yeah, it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
I was just like, "Okay, like, I just drove in a blizzard for nothing?"
Right. So that is why the sequence matters on this. And you need all three, right? Because if you think about it, just to have a team that we have each other's backs and we celebrate each other, we probably don't grow in that group, right?
Right.
As a team, we don't grow. To me, that'd be a great club to be on, maybe, but it's as a team that's not making us at our best, because that third piece of challenge is how do we push each other to get better? That's the difference on that. But you can only do that really well if you're in an environment where people know that when they're pushing you, it comes from a place of not trying to make you look bad, but trying to make the group look better. Still might not be comfortable, but it lands differently, right? It's like you've earned the right to do that.
And going back to knowing that you're supported, knowing that you are a valued member of this team. So, yeah, you get a little bit of pushback, and it's like, "All right," like, you can see things from a different perspective versus, like, "Why are they attacking me?"
I think of the best sports teams that I was on that weren't necessarily the most talented, but they were with individuals that we'd call each other out and might not really feel that good in the moment in terms of being called out in the way that we did. But deep down, we knew like we probably weren't at our best. We weren't giving, all of our effort to that. And somebody called us out on it. They said, you're not pulling your weight right now. That's fair and earned.
Yeah,
That's what great teams do.
that's exactly what great teams do, and, again, going back to that, like, you know that you're like, trust is another big, point that you highlight in the book. Like, when you feel trust within the group, you can take that
Right.
information, and it's like, "All right, like, they're right, I can do better, we can do better." Like, I see where I flubbed up, so to speak.
And it might not happen in the moment. But LA, if it was you and I and you said to me, you know what, Patrick, you're better than this. That lands different, right? Because I might walk away thinking, you know what, I am better than this. And maybe I come back to you later on and I say, you know what, you were right. I'm sorry, I'm going to try better. That's it.
Yeah. Patrick, one of the things that I loved in the book was about this 1% drift, either positive or negative. I mean, like you're smiling already. Like I know
Yeah.
that this is such an important topic that people really need to understand because like even like when somebody is decides to I want to run a marathon, I want to lose weight. Like the one day like you go out and you run the half a mile. It doesn't seem like very much, but over the course of time that half a mile turns into 5, 10, 15 miles. And
Yeah.
the same thing with weight loss. It's you don't wake up the next day having lost all 20 pounds because you were good one day. So that was part of what I thought about like when I was reading about the 1% drift. Can you elaborate on it?
The 1% to me is huge. It is a separator from great versus average and struggling teams. And if you think about it, 1%, at times it's hard to notice 1%. And it's also easy to overlook 1%, right? So hard to notice, easy to overlook. And what I mean by that is that for teams that are trying to move in the right direction, right? We're trying to be more supportive of each other, right? Trying to be better at listening. Well, you're not going to see that right off, right? So all of a sudden you're putting this time in, but you're not noticing a change right off, right? So you're not noticing it. So what do a lot of teams do that are average and struggling? They stop doing it because they're like, well, this isn't working. So they don't do it. Now, the other thing can happen with a team that gets to a place where they're in a pretty good spot, and then they overlook the 1% in the negative. They stop doing the things that got them there, right? They stop having the quick check-in meetings and in socializing outside of work or just other things that have got them to that level because they're there and now they're like, oh, it won't make a big deal if we miss next week in terms of our check-in. But it does. You just don't notice it until all of a sudden it becomes a crisis. And that's why the 1% is so important, either to understand like you're not going to notice it right off, but also it's easy to overlook when you start drifting off course. You don't notice it until it becomes a crisis. That's why that 1% is so important.
So the prescription is stick to the plan?
Yeah.
Like what?
And check in. Continue to check in. I'll give you a personal example on this. So at Christmas, our two kids were home from school at Thanksgiving. We never get a tree this early, but we did this year. So put the tree up. Well, it doesn't take enough water. So the tree literally is like, it's like a matchstick by the time the kids get home for Christmas. We hadn't even put any decorations on it yet because we were waiting for them to come home for a Christmas break. So this tree is kind of like wilted down, but just has the lights on it. And my wife was like, you know what? Let's just keep it with the lights on. And we just won't put any ornaments on it. This was 2 days before Christmas. And I thought about it and I was like, we're not going to do that. We're going out and buying a new tree. And the reason being is because to me, I thought about the 1%. I'm like, okay, so this year we decide not to put ornaments on it. What happens next year? Then we go 2 years without putting, right? Because there's a lot to putting the ornaments on the tree. We're sort of remembering like, oh, I got this one when I was 5 and this one when I was 7. So there was just this whole reconnection to how important that is, that would have not happened if we just said, trees can't handle putting ornaments on it because it's all wilted. No, let's get rid of this tree and buy a new one.
That is a great personal story that really ties into that really well.
But that is how quickly that happens, right? You don't have dinner one night and then it goes to 2 nights that you don't share it together, right? And all of a sudden you don't notice it until you're all of a sudden at a point like, how the hell did we get here?
Yeah.
Right? How did we get this far apart? Because you didn't notice it. It happened over time.
Yeah.
So
talk to me about empathy.
Yeah. That was an interesting one.
It is. It really is. And I think it's a conversation that more people need to have, more teams need to have. But I know that you really talk about it a lot in the book, so I want you to highlight it.
So I wrote an article on this that dovetailed into the book too, and I titled the article, Empathy as an Image Problem. Right? Empathy has an image problem. And the reason that is I think people confuse empathy with agreement. That just because I empathize with somebody means I have to agree with their behaviors, what they do, what they're not doing. It's not.
Right.
It's just about imagining where they are. That's it. That's all we're trying to do is take a step back and see if we can see why they may have made the decision they've made. And if you think about it, we're like icebergs that we only see about 10% of each other. The other 90% sits below the surface. We don't know a lot of the stuff that's going on in people's lives behind the scenes. And we're quick to judge. And I'm as guilty as the next person in that, right? I go right to person's lazy, they're not disciplined. Might be, but maybe I don't really know what's going on in their lives.
Right.
That's the difference. And again, I some of the clients that I have, some of the organizations I work with are more on the industrial side, right? So there's a I think more of a gruffer type of leadership style that can take place at times. So now if you throw empathy in there, it's like, We don't do empathy here, right? That seems too kind of fluffy and, kumbaya. Yet what was interesting is I had one individual manager, real gruff guy, he'd been in this organization for 37 years. And he was joking around about like empathy and, we don't do that stuff here. Yet he then went on to tell a story about one of the employees that he had that he knew was really struggling, and basically cut them a break in terms of knowing the environment they were in. And I had to jokingly say to this person, that's interesting. Sounds like empathy, right? It was empathy. He was just
How
imagining
did he
like,
respond to that?
yeah. He just kind of basically laughed and said, yeah, whatever. Oh, like, that's empathy.
Okay, so because I do believe that leadership sets the tone for departments, like how would a leader, a manager, start to add empathy in so that other team members could also learn empathy?
Well, we know it's a skill, right? If you look at emotional intelligence and empathies, it's a skill that you can develop, but it takes time. To me, it requires practice ahead of time. If you are willing to take a look at yourself in terms of where you're probably not that empathetic, then I always encourage people to take out a piece of paper, write down the situation, and then say, if that were to happen again, what's a way that I could respond that's more empathetic than I do now? What's one thing that I can do? Because it's the only way you're going to change, right? We can theorize and talk about this stuff and consume information in terms of a book and a workshop. But until you start applying it, until you actually do it, you will never get stronger at this. And again, I think that's what separates great from average and struggling teams, is actually putting in the reps. You have to do this stuff. It's the only way you get better at it. It's by doing.
By doing, yes.
And,
And
it,
putting
and
in
it's
the
going to be
reps.
uncomfortable, right? To me, it's no different than going to the gym. If I just read about going to the gym in muscle and fitness and I got it month after month and I knew intellectually like this is exactly how you get stronger, and I just put it in my pocket and read it every day but never went to the gym, I don't think anyone would be surprised that I never got any stronger. It's because intellectually I understood it, but I didn't do the work that required getting stronger,
Right.
which was going to be painful.
Right. It's always painful.
Yeah,
It's
but then
always
you get
painful.
stronger.
Yeah. Well, in trying anything new always feels awkward, no matter what it is. Going to the gym, I was just doing something recently and I was just like, it felt awkward. And I just had to remind myself, I haven't done this before.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
it's all about growth mindset.
Yeah.
This is about reps, just
It
in
is.
the time.
It is.
Which, if you don't mind, I'll come back to one of the things that's in chapter 2 of the book, which is about a belief system. And when I first put that out there, the publisher was kind of like, "Do you have this right? Isn't it a belief system?" I'm like, "No, it's a belief system." And why I talk about that in terms of, and in that chapter, it's about mindset and grit, but belief system is really important for this. And what I mean by that is that if you want to have a great team, then you have to believe that it's worth the effort that it's going to take to get you there. Because if you don't believe that it's going to be worth the struggle and the pain to get you there, then the first time it doesn't go your way, you're going to say, forget it. It's interesting, as we're in January here, there's what's called Quitter's Day, which I think is like around January 15th, which is about that point where people that did New Year's resolutions are like, I'm good. I'm not doing this anymore. It's the same thing. It's that there wasn't a strong enough belief to say, this is that important to me that I'm not giving up on it. I know it's going to be difficult, and I know I'm probably going to struggle at this, but it's this important that I'm not walking away from this. That's what you need. You have to have a belief system.
You have to have that belief system because those walls, whether it's 3 inches or 5 feet tall, made of twigs or bricks, like those walls are going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that they're there because they want to see like, how badly do you want this?
Yeah. And I would argue if you're not coming across those walls and barriers, you're not really pushing yourself very hard.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not. That's true. I like that. So if you had to give all the listeners one tip, what's the one thing you would say?
One tip,
One tip.
I would focus on one thing differently than you're doing now. Take a look at the relationships that you have. And the exercise that I often do with people is imagine they're all bridges that you have to cross. Some look better than others, right? Some are nice to cross, they're fun, they're enjoyable. Others don't look quite as good. But we need all those bridges if we're going to be a great team. Which of those bridges, what's one behavior that you think if you improved that behavior, whether it's being a better listener, recognizing people better, being more empathetic, right? Creating more a sense of belongingness with those people around you. What's one thing that you can do that if you did that, you're going to have a stronger bridge? And that's what I would focus on for at least 30 days. I'd do nothing more than that.
100%. I agree with the 30 days. When I did leadership development and like after you do like a 360, it's like you got this laundry list of things that they want to change. And I would always tell them, don't. Like, let's pick one
One.
thing each month. You focus on it, and then it just becomes so natural. So it's so much easier to add that second step, that second act. I
Yeah.
love this.
I will tell you on teams that I work with, the way I will challenge them to say, start your week out and you're going to ask yourself 3 questions. What can I do this week to make sure that people know I have their backs? What can I do this week to make sure that I recognize people for stuff that doesn't go unnoticed? And then what can I do to make sure we get better as a team and as an individual? It's the same 3 questions that I challenge them at the end of the week. Now, all you do is say, how did I do this week? How did I have each other's backs? How did I recognize people this week? And how did we get stronger? It's a way to start my day or my week and end my week with those 3 questions. You do that every week, you will become a great team.
Yeah, you will. And also if you read your book so that there's more tips and ideas in there.
Lots of
So
tips.
the missing piece, I highly recommend it. I've read most of it, and I'm excited to get my copy in the mail. But Patrick, can you tell people where can they get the book?
Yeah, you can get the book basically. Most people go to Amazon to get the book. It's available on there. It's both hard and soft cover as well. If you go on my LinkedIn profile, you'll see a lot of the things that are in that book are articles, videos that I put out there in terms of just pieces of this thing in terms of why this is so important, because a great team is available to everybody. It's only select people that get it. It has nothing to do with talent. That helps, but it's not the most important thing. There's a better way to do this. That's what the missing piece helps to uncover.
Thank you very much for that. And where can people learn more about you and what you do and how they could bring you in to work with their team?
Sure. 2 ways. One is my website, Emery Leadership Group, and that's EMERY leadershipgroup.com. That's one way. And the other way is simply to go on LinkedIn and Patrick Veroneau. If you pull me up there, that's probably one of the best ways.
And I will make sure both of those links are down below, along with a link so that people can go grab a copy of your book on Amazon. And Patrick, thank you so much. Congratulations on your
Oh, thank
second
you.
book. This, it's you can tell that you put your heart and soul into this book. And I can hardly wait for more people to read this and become the catalyst to a better team, become a better team member themselves, but also help their teams grow and become better.
Yeah, it's available.
Yeah.
Put it.
Available for all of us.
Yeah.
So
Thanks
thank
so
you
much.
very much.
Appreciate it, Ally.
And until next week, I want you to be in demand. What a great interview. And I hope that you got a lot out of what Patrick actually talked about. And the link will be down below to Patrick's book and also to his website. But also he shared with me after we stopped recording that he has this quiz that he talks about, like, how great is my team? And you can take this quiz, and I'll make sure that that link is down below, along with the article that goes with it that Patrick wrote that is on LinkedIn. So until next week, I want you to be in demand. Hey, before you go, do you want to learn how to turn every talk into clients and cash? Well, check out my brand new limited series podcast, Public Speaking Monetization Tips. You'll learn how to find speaking opportunities, monetize every stage, and use your voice as your most powerful marketing tool. Whether you're a coach, a consultant, or an expert, this series will help you speak smarter, not harder. Search for Public Speaking Monetization Tips on your favorite podcast app and start listening today.